Coronavirus infections in Nigeria rise to more than 11,500, with 350 new cases confirmed by the NCDC.
Presidential Task Force on COVID-19 decries rise in maternal and child mortality in the country.
Access to care for chronic conditions such as HIV and other treatments not being delivered in our hospitals, and people need to be able to access care.
The Economic Sustainability Committee interacts with the National Assembly on the draft plan.
And on Good Morning Nigeria today, we continue our conversation on 5 years of the Buhari administration with focus on agriculture.
All right, remember the nursery rhyme? Rain, rain, go away, come again another day, because someone wants to play. Well, I understand now that it actually has its origin in the war between England and Spanish Amanda. That was in 1588. I don't think any one of us was born then. But having said that, the month of June is synonymous with rain, and I know a group of people across the country who will by now be humming a different variant of that nursery rhyme. And Kingsley, what do you presume the variant will be? Any ideas?
Oh, well, Claire, I mean, in response to your question, the onset of the rains is usually an indication for farming activities to begin in places where agriculture is rain-fed. Now, farmers and those who are engaged in agriculture or agro-allied businesses would naturally be humming in preparation for farming activities, some of which have already started, by the way. So yes, farmers have begun to till the ground, and planting activities have also commenced in earnest in various parts of the country. And of course, these parts of the country have been receiving higher volumes of rainfall. All
right, so the wish of Mr. President, re-echoed in his solemn message, penultimate weekend, is that, and I like to quote him, this rainy season be bountiful, so a lot of food be produced, that farmers stayed in their farms so that we can't produce what we need sufficiently, take note of that, so that we don't have to import. In any case, we don't have money to import, so we must produce what we have to eat, unquote. Now, that captures the content of the change agenda in the agriculture sector. Of course, and since 5 years ago, the president and his team have been building on this spirit of agricultural diversification.
That's right, Claire. Now, the diversification drive in the agriculture sector has been manifest in the areas of crop production, livestock, forestry, and fishing. And it appears certainly that steady progress has been made since 5 years ago. This position is supported by data provided by the National Bureau of Statistics. In its latest report, it indicates that agriculture is now the second largest contributor to the gross domestic product in the non-oil sector. It accounts for over 26% to the real GDP in the last quarter of 2019. And as one of our guests on Good Morning Nigeria said yesterday, the impact of fiscal and monetary stimulus packages to agriculture is visible. And this also resonates with one of the tweets that we got last week, alluding to the variety of locally produced rice now available in the market.
Indeed, and someone asked if Kingsley, what kind of rice would you serve, your guests right now? I'm sure it will be a variety of the locally produced one.
There's no question about that. I mean, Nigerian produced rice is far more nutritious, far more tasty than the imported variety. There's no question about that.
Indeed, Kingsley. Yes. So initiatives like the Anchors Borrowers Program, that's the ABP, is a household name now in crops production, especially rice, wheat. Also, the school feeding program has been a major boost to domestic food production. Livestock and dairy farming are becoming more vibrant and lucrative. There is also focus on building the capacity of women, youth, and small-scale farmers in agricultural mechanization. But the big question will be, has it been all positive blooming for the sector this past 5 years? And what is the fate of agriculture in the face of the ravaging COVID-19 pandemic? And as Bob Dylan would say, the answer is not just blowing in the wind. Our guests here will be right here in the studio to give life to the answers. Hello and welcome to Good Morning Nigeria this Friday. I am Claire Chikodinaga Adelabu Abdurrazak. And as you know, it's the last edition for this week and one you won't want to miss, especially if you're aspiring to get rich quick.
Well, Claire, I mean, get rich quick, that's a difficult one. Agriculture is not a venture where you get rich quick. It requires a lot of investment and attention. Get rich quick, usually those who want to do that will get into all kinds of Ponzi schemes. But the key point about agriculture, which you have raised, and which our guests, of course, will be exploring further, is the fact that it's given us an opportunity now to be self-sufficient in our nutritional requirements. Well, as I said, I'm not quite sure about that aspect of getting rich quickly through farming because farming is time-specific and it requires a lot of patience. Naturally, as we indicated earlier, it begins with clearing and tilling of the earth, planting, nurturing, and then harvesting. It's an entire value chain, so it will depend on what aspect of the agricultural value chain that one is interested in. Plus, of course, you know, other aspects apart from harvesting the raw produce, what else is required to be done. So the Buhari administration, of course, has opened many windows of opportunity in the agricultural sector. We shall explore all of this in the 5 years that the government has been in office, plus what else needs to be done. I'm Kingsley Osadolo. I join my colleague Claire to also welcome you to this edition of the program. It's Good Morning Nigeria, as always, live on the network service of the Nigerian Television Authority. We're transmitting live from our Abuja headquarters studios.
All right, in just a moment, we'll be joined by Musbah Danwahab to give us highlights of the morning news. It will be followed with a bit of trending business news. And Bayat Toyebi joins us much later for newspaper review. So I can rely on you to stay tuned until we're done at about 9 or thereabout. So let's turn our attention now to the news studio where Musbah Danwahab is waiting. Hello, Musbah.
Hello, Claire and Kingsley. Good morning. Let's take a bit of the news. The Nigeria Center for Disease Control, NCDC, has announced 350 new cases of COVID-19 in Nigeria, increasing the total number of confirmed cases to 11,516 till date. Of the new cases, 102 are in Lagos, 34 in Ogun, 29 in FCT, 26 in Borno, 23 in Kaduna. White Rivers has 21 cases. In Ebonyi, there were 17 cases, 16 in Kwara, 14 in Katsina, 10 cases were recorded in Edo, Delta, Kano, and Bauchi each. Bayelsa has 9, 8 in Imo, 4 in Plateau, 3 in Ondo, 2 in Nasarawa, 1 in Gombe, and Oyo states each. Lagos State has a total of 5,542 cases, followed by Kano with 980, while FCT has 792 cases confirmed. In total, there are 7,658 active cases, while 3,535 patients have been treated and discharged, with 323 deaths recorded so far. The Presidential Task Force on COVID-19 has decried a steady rise in maternal and child mortality in the country, attributing the trend to disruption of essential services in the health sector due to the coronavirus pandemic.
Life-saving maternal, newborn and child health services, routine vaccinations, access to care for chronic conditions such as HIV, and other treatments not being delivered in our hospitals. And people need to be able to access care.
If you're symptomatic, you can be discharged if you have had 3 days without symptoms, in addition to at least 10 days of symptoms. If you're asymptomatic, we can discharge you. You can be discharged 14 days after your first PCR positive test.
And the Minister of State for Education, Professor Emeka Nwajuba, says the ministry's plan to reopen schools in the country will depend on the mechanisms put in place by the federal government towards getting the economy of the country moving. This was his response when he was asked about the actual date of resumption of the classroom's activities before the House Committee on Basic Education.
All of these things that we are discussing, none of them is concluded yet. We think that this period is a period for everybody to make that kind of input. And like I said, starting with you.
I assure you that this committee remains poised to work, continuing to work with the ministry to make our educational sector better.
Vice President Yemi Osinbajo led the members of the Economic Sustainability Committee in an interaction on Thursday with the leadership of the National Assembly on the draft sustainability plan ahead of the submission of a plan to the President. Meanwhile, a minor fire incident was recorded Thursday afternoon at a store near the State House Chapel and the Presidential Villa, Abuja. In a statement, Senior Special Assistant to the President on Media and Publicity, Garuba Shehu, said the incident linked to an electrical fault was immediately brought under control using available fire extinguishers well ahead of the arrival of a federal fire service trucks stationed just outside the premises. There was no casualty as a result of the incident. And those are the news highlights for now. Good morning, Nigeria. We'll continue with Claire and Kingsley after this break. Good morning.
Main way coronavirus spread is when infected people sneeze and cough. Small droplets of fluid expelled by cough or sneezes are laced with viruses looking for new respiratory tracts to infect. When a sick person sneezes around someone who is healthy, the virus can land in the nose, mouth, or even the eyes, causing an infection. Symptoms can include fever, cough, shortness of breath. Symptoms may appear within 2 to 14 days. Seek medical advice if you develop symptoms and have been in close contact with a person known to have COVID-19, or if you live or have recently been in an area with ongoing spread of COVID-19. This message is brought to you by the Nigerian Television Authority, NTA, Africa's largest television network. In this time of despair, our country, Nigeria, needs us now more than ever. We stand a chance to save our great country, Nigeria. A chance to rise up from this pandemic stronger and better. What will be the gain if we do not learn from other countries and observe the lockdown to stop the further spread of the virus? If we loosen our guards and allow this virus doom our very existence, then what have we gained? This is the call to every Nigerian to unite as one and stop the spread of this deadly virus. Stay at home and stay safe. Remember, the virus doesn't move unless we move. This message is brought to you by the Nigerian Television Authority, NTA, Africa's largest television network.
Today on Happy Clean Nigeria Mission, we visit Mrs. Johnson live in Lagos.
Helen Paul!
Hello, madam. Would you like to join us on this mission?
Yes, but how?
Just one question for you. How do you keep your toilet clean?
I use regular detergent and bleach for washing and removing yellow stains. I have been using it for years.
Oh, madam, the regular detergents and bleach are used for washing clothes. To clean your toilet properly, you need Harpic 10X. It is specially made for stains in the toilet. Harpic Thick formula settles on stains and gives 10 times better cleaning compared to regular detergents and bleach.
Wow! Now I'm convinced, Helen Paul.
Really?
Yeah.
Now that she's part of the mission, the next house is yours.
We have observed the lockdown. We have practiced the measures in order to curb the spread of the virus, but we can do better. The coronavirus spread is increasing daily, and only together can we cut down the numbers and defeat the spread of the virus? Remember, COVID-19 is not a death sentence, and a recovered patient cannot spread the disease. Do not stigmatize. Do not hesitate to report any case, or if you have come in contact with anybody that has been infected with COVID-19. If you have cough and fever, please stay at home and call your state hotline. Find state numbers at www.covid19.ncdc.gov.ng. Remember, it is for your own good and for the good of every Nigerian. Let us do better and defeat the virus. Together, we can do this. This message is brought to you by the Nigerian Television Authority, NTA, Africa's largest television network.
Do you not know that our enemies have no face? They are indigents of no state. They come from no place. And if this boat capsizes, every one of us will go under. So when the drums sound, let everybody answer. Do not say, I am the Iroko when the forest is burning. Do not say, I am the Obeche when the forest is burning. Our differences will not stop us from perishing together. So when the drums sound, let everybody answer.
You're watching Good Morning Nigeria, reaching you on the network service of the Nigerian Television Authority. Now it's time for us to take some business stories. With increased advocacy for government to implement the zero oil plan in the light of oil revenues plummeting amid the coronavirus pandemic. Details of this with our correspondent, Comfort Amodu.
Key players in the economy say there is need to embrace new strategies for sustainable economic growth and diversification of the economy, as they foresee a drop in exports of more than $100 million in the cocoa sector as a result of declining prices due to fall in demand, even as cashew exports are vulnerable to fall in demand as well. They, however, encourage industry players and entrepreneurs to turn their attention towards other products that are in high demand.
If I'm talking of cocoa, now before I talk of cocoa, the person in London knows the price of cocoa. In fact, they are the one determining the price. But if I'm doing dead palm, no, it's only me that knows the price. The safest thing is to go on those products, I call them semi-traditional products. For example, coconut is a wonderful crop right now. Some countries, especially in the Asian countries, the Philippines, we see how much they get from coconut production. When I'm talking coconut, the value chain, we're talking about raw coconut, transfer into coconut powder, coconut milk, coconut cream, coconut oil, a lot of things around it. And so they're making a lot of money. And that's the kind of potential we have. Just dead palm we are talking today. The dead palm, before you know it, people will get even oil from dead palm.
Next is the closing figures of trades on the floor of the Nigerian Stock Exchange. With business news, Comfort Amodu.
All right, that was Comfort Amodu on business news this morning. Next is newspaper review. Join us again.
our newspaper reviewer, Bayo Atoyebe, is right here. Bayo, good morning and welcome.
Thank you, Kinsley. Good morning. Good morning, Claire.
Bayo.
Good morning, Nigeria.
I like your, is it carb?
Call it what you will.
I love it.
Thank you.
That's filthy. Is it the ashoke?
Yes, it's a combination of the two. But this is typical of the Igala.
I love it.
That's great. All right, let's take a look at the papers, beginning with The Nation. With The Nation newspaper above the nameplate. Government targets 5 million jobs with $1.2 billion scheme and 6 assembly plants coming. Government targets 5 million jobs with $1.2 billion scheme, 6 assembly plants coming. Anger in House of Reps over rising insecurity. Service chiefs invited, that's page 8. Bandits killed 21 in Zamfara communities, 2 councils raided. And below the nameplate, LCC, IDAS, Lagos Chamber of Commerce and Industry, Manufacturers Association of Nigeria, Lord CBN on bailout funds. And external reserves now $36.57 billion. Details on page 26. Lead stories on coronavirus says patients without symptoms to go after 14 days, says NCDC. 2 riders, FCT, that is Federal Capital Territory, can seeks review of worship time to 19 minutes. This is from 1 hour stipulated in the revised order. So FCT, Christian Association of Nigeria, seeks review of worship time to 90 minutes. Churches, mosques and hotels to open in Lagos June 19th. And then on the right side there you see the sidebar detailing in figures the corona pandemic casualties as well as infections and those who have recovered. Globally, over 6.6 million persons have been infected. Unfortunately, well over 390,000 have died, but some 3.2 million persons have recovered, just about half of those who have been infected. And of course, you see the Nigerian figures there. We also read those figures in the news. Active cases in Nigeria now, about 7,600 minimum. And below that, you have ESCO members, that is Executive Council members, positive. Ban on interstate travels likely to be lifted from June 21st. Kogi rejects NCDC's 3rd case. 76% of Kano cases are males. SON, Standards Organization of Nigeria, to harmonize local ventilators. Positive patients shown isolation. Nasarawa governor's father hospitalized. Details are inside the paper. The photograph on the front page is a photograph that has caused a lot of outrage, not just in the United States, but elsewhere around the world. And that has to do with the killing of George Floyd by a policeman. And that took place in Minneapolis. Now, yesterday was the funeral service for him in North Central University in Minnesota. George Floyd and members of his family during the funeral service, I recall that there was a story by you earlier that Floyd Mayweather Jr., as a retired boxing champion, 50 bouts without a loss, offered to sponsor the funeral services. And right below that, Obaseki backtracks on exclusion of lawmakers-elect. The governor, that's Obaseki, names Sanwo-Olu, Lalong, and senator in peace panel. We insist on indirect primary, and commissioner quits. That's the commissioner for information in Edo State. He's resigned, and many killed in Kogi bank robbery, that's page 4. Autumn hails troop deployment in North Central. It is on page 29. Clear.
Yes, Kingsley, thank you. So I'll just keep the one stat you have read that I have on the front page of the leadership. So let me take the lead story, which is very instructive. It says, COVID-19 threatens treatment of HIV, other terminal ailments. And that page is busy with a number of riders there. NACA laments shortage of reagent drugs. Says lockdown in India, delaying shipment of medications. We also have elderly others alleged neglect, turn to pharmacies. Federal government condemns coronavirus patients' refusal to go into isolation, asks states to mount aggressive campaign, and ABUTH Zaria overwhelmed. and that's again as everyone shuts down all government offices. Now that's the lead story, but let me also look at the trending stories just a little below the nameplate right there. Alleged alteration, petitioner withdraws summon on Bayelsa Deputy Governor, page 2. Vigilant workers avert fire incident in Aso Villa on page 12, and PMB kicks off a Greek revolution with 1.2 billion naira. Kingsley read this earlier on as, of course, indicating targeting 5 million jobs. But this is one of the laudable initiatives in the agri sector. I think it has to do with the partnership with between Nigeria and Brazil in terms of revolutionizing agriculture, mechanizing agriculture. And I think the Minister of Information yesterday did say that some hundreds of farmers, smallholder farmers, will benefit from tractors.
Yeah, considerably. I think, and the approach is grassroots approach, and it's going to start from the local government areas. And the initiative is that where there are agri produce, there will be processing centers too that will set up, apart from the mechanization, so that agri produce don't go into waste. So it's an opportunity to use agriculture as the impetus to drive the economy and also provide a tremendous job and also initiative in agricultural processing. But meanwhile, in the matters of the day, COVID-19 is still ravaging. We have 350 cases yesterday in 20 states and 8 deaths. So far, our total score is now 11,516, and we have lost 323 of our compatriots. Lagos is to open mosque on June 19 and churches June 21st. However, there are caveats. Persons below age 15 and those who are above 65 and above are not to be allowed to be at the religious services. Prayer houses are not to accommodate more than 40% of their capacity, and they have provided a wider range. Even if your capacity is over 500, you cannot have more than 40%, so maximum 200 worshippers. Health protocols too are to be observed. In the Federal Capital Territory, the Christian Association of Nigeria and League of Imams have met with the FCT administration. They have also agreed on a number of protocols that should be put in place for Friday mosques today and churches on Sunday. But there are concerns that you read in the editorial. There are challenges that some COVID-19 patients are running from isolation centers, and the World Health Organization official in Jos has lamented that some COVID-19 persons have absconded and it is becoming difficult to trace them. He told the Bongo Jos, Jacob Buba, that people who have tested positive have refused to go into isolation, especially in an area that is called Daula in Jos North local government area. And interestingly, Jos North has 76 of the 109 cases in Plateau. So that is the epicenter, and people are reluctant to go into isolation. And therefore, the Presidential Task Force on COVID-19 has warned that although there have been relaxation on going for church services and mosque services, however, if the protocols are not observed and there are incidences of increases, we risk the challenges of reverting.
Yes, we have to quickly. Leadership, last one. Reps reject castration of rapists.
Yes.
This is, sorry, this also resonates with our editorial, which we'll take right now. It says rising cases of violence against women.
Yes, the House of Rep was concerned about high incidence of crime generally, including rape. Accordingly, they have summoned the service chiefs and also the National Security Advisor for a meeting. But to illustrate what is happening, bank robbery at Isanlu, the robbers were frustrated and they therefore shot at passers-by and went to the police station and shot policemen at the district police headquarters. You recall that is the pattern that happened in Ofa, Ekiti, Oye Ekiti, and also Ijero. It's the same pattern they use. And it's the security people, the police must now devise a means to break that strategy. Talking about rape now, a 25-year-old boy raped a septuagenarian in Ota, Sango Ota. Went into the house, the poor old woman screamed, and that was when the boy was caught. And this has become a matter of concern. And that was why the debate in the House of Representatives also touched on the issue. But the editorial is happening on the fact that there has to be serious punishment to deter people who indulge in this crime, especially violence against women and rape. And the editorial is citing the instance that in India, if it is rape for a person below the age, from age 12 and below, it is death as a penalty. However, other ones attract 30 years imprisonment. They are advising that we should ensure that there is stiff penalty. Ironically, this is coming from the legislator, the Senate and the House of Representatives, that there should be stiff penalty. And it is they actually who should actually legislate the stiff penalty for this rape.
Okay, Bayo, would like to thank you. Just before we remember, there was one writer I read from Edo State, the Commissioner for Information has resigned his appointment.
Yes.
What is a bit curious is that resignation was handed in yesterday, was accepted yesterday, and the Secretary to the State Government indicated that there had been a replacement with immediate effect. So I was just wondering, do you appoint a commissioner with immediate effect, or the commissioner becomes a nominee whose name then goes to the State House of Assembly for screening and approval, for vetting before you're not appointing? So he's not even a designate, he will be a nominee. If you were to swear him in, all his actions, of course, will be a nullity constitutionally. All right, Bayo Atudu, thank you for being with us.
Thank you too.
See you again on Monday. We hope you enjoy your weekend.
You too.
All right, it's Good Morning Nigeria, reaching on the network service of the Nigerian Television Authority. We'll take a short break now. When we return, we'll go ahead with our item for discussion this morning.
The coronavirus, also known as COVID-19, is spreading at an alarming rate all over the globe, including Nigeria. With the number of infected persons in Nigeria increasing daily, prevention is better than cure. Coronavirus has no cure. The virus spreads from one person, who affects two persons, and by the time the affected person is isolated, the two persons have affected four, and it keeps spreading. You must take preventive measures to save yourself and that of the people around you. Always wash your hands with soap and water. Put distance between yourself and others. Whenever you cough or sneeze, cover your mouth. Clean and disinfect surfaces. Stay at home if you're sick and contact the proper authorities. Together, we can cut down the spread of the coronavirus. This message is brought to you by the Nigerian Television Authority, NTA, Africa's largest TV network.
We're in a fight to protect everything that matters to us. It's a fight to build, share, celebrate, and soar once more. It's a fight to win back our world. So let's fight it the way we have for generations. Let's practice healthy habits. Let's protect our hands, our homes, and our loved ones within them. Because if we do, together, we will win. Dettol, protect what's worth fighting for.
Welcome, dear. Have you washed your hands?
Inside my house again. This thing not the key black man.
I don't know if it's misinformation or poor hygiene that will kill you first. Coronavirus is real, and good hygiene practice will save your life. Anyway, no hand washing, no eating.
I will not take care of it. How's one of the parents? Coronavirus is real and it's on the rise. But you can help yourself and help others to be safe. Remember, we can stop the spread. It's in your hands.
This message is from the Akinfade Foundation in partnership with the National Orientation Agency with support from MacArthur Foundation.
Coronavirus is real. Steps to avoid this pandemic. Wash your hands regularly or sanitize your hands. Keep social and physical distancing. Avoid crowded places. Stay at home unless absolutely necessary. Don't touch your eyes, nose, or mouth if your hands are not clean. Avoid the spread of coronavirus. Coronavirus is real.
There is a lot of fake news and report circulating, especially on social media, on the coronavirus. Do not believe or partake in the spread of these fake reports. If it is not on the official website or news from the Nigerian Center for Disease Control and CDC, disregard such report. Only together can we beat this virus. Only together can we overcome this pandemic. Follow the instructions and guidelines provided to combat this virus. Most importantly, stay at home. Self-isolate, regardless of your status. The virus doesn't move unless we move. Let us work together to better Nigeria. Together, we can do this. This message is brought to you by the Nigerian Television Authority, NTA, Africa's largest television network.
It's Good Morning Nigeria on the network service of the NTA. Now, our conversation is on 5 years of the Buhari administration, special focus on agriculture. To set a tone for this, let's join our correspondent Oyemi Ajayi with the background.
Before 2015, farmers in Nigeria were faced with a series of challenges, most especially the problem of middlemen, referred to as bottlenecks, would deny them access to fertilizers to nurture their crops. Trucks of fertilizers stolen were some of the stories being heard then, and these has made farmers work more with little to show. This contributed to decline in yields of farmers, but for the middlemen, it was great gains. The inception of President Muhammadu Buhari in 2015 was believed to be a watershed of revival for the agricultural sector. The Anchor Borrowers Program, ABP, of the Central Bank of Nigeria, launched by the President on November 17, 2015, made available more than 200 billion naira in funding to more than 1.5 million smallholder farmers of 16 different commodities, including rice, wheat, maize, cotton, cassava, poultry, soya beans, groundnuts, fish, amongst others, cultivating over 1.4 million hectares of farmlands. The bottleneck syndrome became a thing of the past as farmers now get fertilizers directly. The ABP has substantially raised local production of rice, doubling the production of paddy as well as milled rice between 2015 and 2019, with more than 10 new rice mills coming on stream in Nigeria. More than $1 billion of private sector investments in the production of rice, wheat, sugar, poultry, animal feed, fertilizers, etc. since 2015 aside the Federal Executive Council approval for a National Agricultural Mechanism Program, the Grain Imperative, in partnership with the government of Brazil and multilateral financing institutions in 2020. Also, agriculture was exempted from tax, and these encouraged youths to get more involved in the sector. The closure of border gave a boost to the local agricultural production, which encouraged local farming and banning of the smuggling of foreign goods through the land. In 2017, a government-to-government agreement was launched with the Kingdom of Morocco. More than 1 million metric tons of fertilizers produced since 2017. This translated to distribution of more than 18 million 50 kg bags of fertilizer in the first 3 years. 22 blending plants resuscitated, combined installed capacity of more than 2.5 million metric tons with rice reduction from 9,000 and 11,000 naira per bag to 5,500 naira. Foreign exchange savings of $150 million annually through the substitution of imported components with locally manufactured ones was realized, and subsidy savings of 50 billion naira annually was made. The government has also pushed for the revival of the moribund textile industries with the injection of 100 billion naira. With all these achievements, Nigeria has now moved from the food importing nation to a country that is not only food secured but also at par with the world's largest producers of agricultural produce. How has the administration fared? How can these achievements be sustained, and what more needs to be done? Guest on NTA's Good Morning Nigeria will be providing answers shortly.
Okay, thank you, Yemi Ajayi. So let me quickly introduce our first guest here in our Abuja studio, and he is Professor Murtala S. Sagagi. Yes, he's a Special Assistant Senior Policy Advisor to the Minister of Agriculture. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you very much.
And also joining us via Skype from Katsina, we have Architect Kabiru Ibrahim, National President, All Farmers Association of Nigeria, AFAN. Thank you very much, Architect Kabiru, for joining us this morning.
Thank you, Claire. Thank you.
Okay, Kingsley.
All right, well, let's begin the conversation with Architect Kabiru Ibrahim. Architect Kabiru Ibrahim, you've been our frequent guest whenever we are discussing issues relating to agriculture. And so before we bring in the government side, if you like, here represented by the Special Assistant to the Honorable Minister of Agriculture and Rural Development, tell us from your own perspective as the man on the field, what has changed in the 5 years of the Buhari administration with regard to the agricultural sector?
Well, I'm glad to say that a lot has changed. We have seen tremendous progress in agriculture in Nigeria since we escorted the president to Kebbi to launch the Ankobroa program on rice in November 2015. And even before that, when we launched the APP, Agriculture Promotion Policy, at Sheraton, the president was represented by the vice president. The APP came about because of some work that we did at Zaria in Nerils. We had a meeting with the research institutes there, and we came up with a blueprint for the government of Buhari to implement. When we came back to Abuja, we interfaced with the Nigeria Agricultural Foundation and convened a program at Eradua Center, which culminated in the launching of the APP at the Sheraton. It borrowed from all the good things in Atta and added to the new policy that Nigeria should focus its attention to agriculture because it used to do that before the advent of oil. To that extent, we have seen a lot of improvement or achievements in agriculture. This government will have to be uploaded for making people who are hitherto averse to agriculture and who looked at it as a chore that had to be done to get dirty on the land. And now many people are attracted into agriculture. Then the CBN came with this Ankoboroa program, and it has impacted greatly on agriculture in Nigeria. Over the years, we have had the experience of relegating agriculture to the background and having policy somersaults and all that. We believe that if the tempo goes on and continues, Nigeria will be able to produce what it eats and eat what it produces, and it will even use agriculture to attract foreign exchange. Now more than any time, because of the Africa Free Continental Trade Area, Nigeria stands to play its fatherly role in Africa. And informally, we have been feeding so many countries in the West African coast, and some even get out to up to Libya. Because if you go from the Dawanau market in Kano, you would see so many trucks of our food crops going up to Timbuktu and going up to northern Ghana. But this was, of course, before the bad behavior of our neighbors that caused the president to close some of the borders. It's a very good thing in retrospect, because when COVID-19 came, what we had internally was able to help us up to this point. Now, the effects of COVID is limited because we have had a saving. We did not sell our products loosely to the other nations near us. But going forward, towards the end of the year and come 2021, things might be different if proactive action is not taken. Indeed, government is trying to bring in mechanization, which will replace human labor with machine labor and therefore upscale production. It is planning also to train quite a number of extension officers to help our farmers. They are going to do a lot of things on livestock improvement. We believe that if this tempo goes on and the right kind of people are placed to drive agriculture in Nigeria, what Nigeria would do to the food system in Africa and the world come 2050 will be real and now. Because you remember that the world is going to be about 10 billion people come 2050. And there will be a lot of pressure on the food system. Food security will be very difficult to attain if nations do not pay attention to food production. So Nigeria is poised to become a very, very big player in the food system. Mind you, we have 84 million hectares of land that can be cultivated. Right now, we are doing only about 40% of it. Come the reality of the mechanization that we're talking about, the money that we will borrow that will come in kind from Brazil, if it does come and these things come in, we can expand our cultivable land and even irrigable land, therefore upscale our production. So Nigeria is in a very good state now to make agriculture work. So the agriculture space has to be very well driven, very well focused, and Nigeria will be able to play its role as the food basket of Africa and will contribute to the food system in the world. So briefly, I think we can say that what the government has done in terms of agriculture is very, very satisfactory, and it should continue.
Thank you, Architect Kabiru Ibrahim. Just before I ask my question, let me quickly introduce our guest who has just joined us right here in the studio, Honorable Ahmed Sajo. And he's the public affairs analyst as well as former commissioner for information and strategy in Adamawa State. Honorable Sajo, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you. My pleasure.
Okay. I'd just like to again re-echo, my conversation earlier on with Kingsley, and in it I quoted the president's, Salah message, which of course is at the, very core of the change agenda with respect to the agri sector. And he says, again, I like to quote him, this rainy season be bountiful, so a lot of food be produced. Take note of this, that farmers stayed in their farms. Farmers stayed in their farms so that we can produce what we need sufficiently. And the other one says, in any case, we don't have money to import, so we must produce what we have to eat. So my question will be, does the change that Architect Kabir Ibrahim talking about, and we're glad to have acknowledged that, does it constitute a change in model or attitude towards farming, if you may? In other words, is farming now a business, or do we still practice farming from the cultural perspective? Before we bring in the essay, let's hear the response of Honorable Sajo.
Thank you very much. I thought the government would have driven the discussion, but in truth, where farming is not just seen as a business, but the government had seen farming as a value chain, not just going to the farm to till the land or produce poultry products or fish, but it became a value chain. And the present government started the value chain from fertilizer, which is one of the key components, one of the key inputs in ensuring agri productivity. So there was this government-to-government agreement between Nigeria and the Kingdom of Morocco, which necessitated improved production and increased production of fertilizer, which dropped the cost from between 9,000 to 11,000 to about 5,000 to 5,500 or thereabout, which also removed, more than 10 billion naira from bogus subsidies on fertilizer. Then it moved on and then began to see agriculture as an economic activity, intervening in key sectors. One of the key sectors was rice production. We were importing too much rice from Asia. Said, okay, let's focus on rice production, resuscitate not just the rice farming itself as an activity that produces paddy, but improve on milling and overall production of rice from the farm to the table. Then it moved on and looked at the rotten kind of poultry that was imported, and then said, look, intervene in poultry. One of the largest areas we were getting fish was Lake Chad. Lake Chad receded. Boko Haram stopped people from doing fishing activities in Lake Chad. And then now, the government now focused on fish production and improved fish. So it's a value chain from the tilling of the land to the marketing of it, right up to the table of the consumer. And I think that worked for us. Then to add to it, the government now did the border drill. We don't call it border closure, but it was a border drill. The border drill now ensured that, all kind of agri products that were of very little value, some of harmful value that were coming into the country were stopped. And so we had to look inward. And then we began to look inward. And part of the success stories was, still remains the lake rice. When Lagos and KB began to collaborate to produce rice.
Have we expanded, with all of this, have we been able to expand the age group, that now venture into...
In all honesty, from my own experience, because I had driven the process directly when I was on the cabinet of a state government, and I knew what happened. The age bracket had not just expanded, but for us, we witnessed a number of young people who regretted that they spent years going from office to office, dropping CVs, trying to look for money when there was money, either in crop production, poultry, or fisheries and aquaculture activities. So all of these things helped a lot, and it expanded the horizon, and it also helped us because, like Achite Kabiru said, if this COVID-19 had happened at a time when we were importing food, we would have been in trouble because nobody was moving. The whole world was locked down somehow. So where would we have gotten our food to eat if this had happened to us when we had not taken direct action to change our food production situation? So I think we have
moved on.
We have moved on, definitely.
All right, thank you very much, Ahmad Sajo, one of our regular guests usually on Good Morning Nigeria. Let's bring in now Professor Motola Sagagi. One of the points to note, because talking about agric as a business, I'm sure that Nigerians will recall that was a slogan of Dr. Akinwumi Adesina, who is the current president of the African Development Bank and is seeking re-election with all kinds of hurdles being placed on his path. Happily, the Nigerian president and indeed other African presidents have risen in support of him. Under him, while he was serving President Goodluck Jonathan, we had the agricultural transformation agenda. And then just before your tenure, when Chief Audu Ogbe was Minister of Agric, we also had the Green Alternative, and now we are hearing the Green Initiative. But in all of this, particularly since we're discussing 5 years of the Buhari administration, what have, in your view, been the qualitative differences that have given us the accretion in terms of the gains that we have seen in the agricultural sector?
Thank you very much for this interesting question, and I feel very, very comfortable to answer it because of the last two speakers who spoke before me. And let me say this with all sense of sincerity and humility, that the greatest achievement of Buhari's administration in agriculture, the greatest one, is policy consistency. That's it. Policy consistency. Because as my friend Architect Kabiru mentioned, we had agricultural transformation agenda, which Adesina has started. It has not been abandoned. Up to today, on daily basis, we are dealing with components of that agricultural transformation agenda. It has not been jettisoned. And then, arising from some of the successes of the agricultural transformation agenda, we now had the APP, which is now the green alternative. And when you look at the green alternative, most of the components were offshoot of ATT. And because of that, you can now see the link between the previous policies that was actually implemented during Adesina and the one that was implemented during Audu Ogbe. Even though there were some cosmetic differences, but the point is, and I think that's the point that Madam raised earlier, now in Nigeria we are beginning to see agriculture as a business, not something that you can do because your parents and your grandparents were already doing it, and doing it with crude technology, with traditional practices. Now that thinking is changing. I cannot tell you reliably that it has changed across the board, but it has shifted from what we knew it before to what we have seen it today. And Akita Kabiru is part of the committee which I am actually involved in. We are now looking at agricultural transformation agenda and APP and trying to chart another roadmap for Nigeria in the next 3 to 4 years. And now what we have done is to say that what are we missing from APP and agricultural transformation agenda? What are we missing? Let me tell you one: technology. Nigeria relied almost exclusively on foreign technology when it comes to agriculture. You cannot be food secured if your technology is coming from somewhere else. Number two, seeds. Seeds, we are relying on foreign seeds. We don't know how many people on regular basis are coming. We want to import this kind of seed, we want to import this kind of thing. Yes, of course, you can't produce everything, but you have to also try to be food secured by also having your own seeds. And then fertilizer, very, very important. And not only that, processing. So when you look at forget about the output, for example, the amount of millions of metric tons we are producing. Agriculture is a value chain. You have to go back. And as somebody who came from the business school before I joined the government, sometimes you have to look at where the money is. And in Africa, we are always focusing on where there is no money. And that's the elementary areas where anybody else can do it without any knowledge, without any technology. So now the roadmap we are trying to have now, it has not been approved, it is still in the process, but we're trying to coin it something like National Agricultural Technology and Innovation Plan. And that's why if my minister were here and have to express his apologies for not being here, he has another engagement by 8:30 to 9, which he has to really attend. He really asked me to extend his apology. He would have loved to be here. If it were my minister that was sitting here, by now he must have mentioned technology more than 100 times. Because without that technology, forget it. And number two, without innovation, forget it. What is innovation? To change the way you do things. And how do you change it? You need knowledge. How do you have knowledge? You must invest in research and development. And tell me the research and development capacity of this country. In my ministry, we have many research institutions. But show me the intellectual properties. Show me those seeds, those processes, those technologies that we can say they are Nigerian, which we are even exporting and we're getting foreign exchange from. So that's where we are going back now in order to complete the processes that agricultural transformation agenda and APP has already started. So to answer your question more directly is to say that yes, the present administration has been there. Mr. President has faced greater challenges because of criticism and what have you. Why did you do this? Why did you do that? And that's the demonstration of leadership. He stood his ground and he continued with these policies, even though at the beginning people were feeling it. But as the Honorable Commissioner mentioned, with this COVID-19.
As a former commissioner, so that...
Okay.
Former commissioner.
Thank you very much. You know, as my colleagues mentioned, with this COVID-19 which started in the last couple of months, suppose Nigeria is still relying on those dollars in CBN to import food and bring it to the country. Suppose Nigeria is still smuggling and bringing all sort kind of food into this country. How do you think we can feed ourselves now? By now, our streets would be filled of people who are really hungry, and that would be unfortunate. But now, our agricultural production has increased. Our saving for foreign direct for food import, before we're talking about 1.3, 1.4, up to 1.5 billion in dollars that we are spending in importing food. But now we are moving toward less than 1 billion US dollars in terms of food imports. So that policy consistency, to me, is the major achievement of Muhammadu Buhari's administration when it comes to agricultural production. I may give some specifics as we move along. Thank you.
Yeah, I was wondering. I mean, that's a very useful point to make. And I'm sure for policy analysts, the key thing, therefore, will be to also link that to what the president has done and his administration with regard to the so-called abandoned projects. I mean, you have hundreds of projects littered all over the country, and rather than having greenfield projects so that you can beat your chest and say that we started and completed this, his own policy outlook has been to say, look, let's identify those projects that can act as economic drivers, focus on them, complete them, and then move on. It's all the same entity. And I would really appreciate your explanation with regard to the policy consistency. I'm not saying that, look, but things are going to be original in my time. We borrow from the past, and then we also infuse our own ideas. We have a few more questions to ask you in terms of innovation and technology we are trying to now bring in into agriculture. Those are very pertinent questions. I wouldn't know, Claire, we have another guest who is joining us. We'll introduce the guest now, and he is Professor Akim Oyerinde. He's head of department.
He will join us. He will join us.
Yes, all right. So, okay, fine. Let's get to if he does, if and when we do get the all clear from tech department, you know, we'll get that to be part of it. But let's come back, Professor Sagagi. To the extent that you can disclose just how much is going on in the policy room, who are you bringing on board? Because while you were speaking, there were a number of important government agencies that you were mentioning. And part of what has often emerged in our conversations on Good Morning Nigeria is the tendency for government departments to work in silos. So, in doing this, is Ministry of Science and Tech on board? And you have a number of research institutes, as you have said. How many of those research institutes are on board? More importantly, is NOTAP also involved? That is the National Office for Technology Acquisition and Intellectual Property Rights. Are all of these persons integrated into what you are doing? Plus, ultimately, those who would then, NASEN is also part of it, those who would then be off-takers of the prototypes to be developed for manufacturing, so that when you want to have your local tractors, you have your local tractors. When you want to have your seeds and seedlings, you have them. Who is on board in this?
Thank you very much. I think the mandate given to us by the Honorable Minister when we started this was the fact that we must adopt triple helix in whatever we are going to do as far as this new policy is concerned. And beyond just what we are saying in terms of government institutions, the first thing, the mandate we're given is bring the private sector. Because the private sector is actually the engine room for growth and development. Government creates enabling environment, provide all the laws, but the private sector is where the actual action is taking place. Bring the private sector, and bring private sector organizations that are credible and can contribute significantly to what we are doing. The second thing is bring all the relevant government sectors into the business, and that's why in the subcommittees we have some committees that were headed by research institutions. We have some research committees that have membership from many organizations, including water resources, including now the Honorable Minister has already, like for example in this mechanization we're doing, there are representation from Federal Ministry of Finance, Budget and Planning. There are representation from Ministry of Water Resources, and Ministry of Agriculture, and Ministry of Commerce and Industries. All those institutions are represented, and you cannot talk about technology or research without going to those institutions that are government institutions that have the mandate of doing that, including organizations such as NAFDAC and Standard Organization of Nigeria. All those ones are coming on board. Some of them are not yet on board because we're still in the planning stage. In fact, if not because of this COVID-19, by now we must have started our general stakeholder engagement so that we can validate it. But we have started getting green light that the country will gradually be opening up, and hopefully by the end of July or early August, if I come here, I can be able to tell you exactly the number of institutions and organizations that are contributing significantly to this, because you cannot do it without having this organization around. And most importantly, sometimes we forget something in this country. You cannot be able to achieve effective policy implementation without bringing research and educational institutions.
Okay, let's pause it for a while, Professor Sagagi, and of course go to Architect Kabiru Ibrahim, who is the National President of Farmers Association of Nigeria, joining us via Skype. Now, while you speak on how handy technology, research, and of course seedlings is to your members, I'd like for you to also speak on, agriculture. We are told from the data provided by NBS that it contributes, it's one of the highest contributors to the GDP, accounting for more than 26%. So what is our import bill like now compared to, before? And what are those crops, that are giving us this mileage?
Thank you very much. If you talk of 26% contribution of agriculture to the GDP, I believe you need to look at it again. In May 2019, I had a program here and somebody said the contribution of agriculture to GDP is 26%. Today, when it is very clear that we have not been importing anything in terms of food and we are almost food sufficient, so I believe agriculture has contributed a lot more than that. Now, that is by the way. As far as agriculture is concerned in Nigeria, the man instead of the machine is playing a very key role. If you bring machines to augment what man does, or to completely remove what man does and subjugate everything to machine, the upscaling of agricultural production will be very high. Now, there is an area where out of our idiosyncrasies, we always thought that it was the mainstay of the food system, and this was rice. People tended to look at rice as the golden thing to eat everywhere in Nigeria. Even my mother, when she was alive, she felt you needed to give her rice instead of corn because it was easier to turn rice into food. But now, people should realize that if we look at all the geopolitical regions in Nigeria, you will find that every geopolitical zone has got its own staple. There is something that people call food. Like I was a youth corper in Owerri in 1983. Anytime I went to the restaurant and asked for food, they would say there was no food, but there was rice. So to the Southeasterner, I don't think that rice is food. It could be yam, it could be gari, it could be other things. So if you want to take Nigeria out of where it is today, what you should do is develop staples that thrive in regions, that the regions require. Therefore, you will now eat what you produce. De-escalate the importance of some of these crops like rice, even though we are motivated by the need or demand for rice in Nigeria, that we are producing rice more than we need now. So after a while, we will be able to export rice. I just saw the president of the Rice Association of Nigeria, Ifan, Alhaji Aminu Gorenye, just shared some things with me on dry season farming for rice. There are vast fields now under cultivation. And once that is harvested and the rainy season harvest comes in, we will have a lot more rice than we need internally. We need to transfer most of these things to our food reserve, which is about 1 million metric tons capacity. After which we should be able to export through AFTA to Africa. So the contribution of agriculture to our GDP is colossal. Now, if technology comes in and innovation, as Prof has mentioned, we will be able to upscale and add value to what we have. And therefore, we will be able to export value-added products. And we will now be a first-class player in the world. This is my hope for agriculture. But you must not antagonize the farmer in doing this. Every farmer, whether you like them or not, must be taken aboard. You must give them the opportunity to be able to contribute to the food system. When I was president of Poultry Association of Nigeria, I belonged to the Commodity Association. But there is an opening to be a member of AFAN, the All Farmers Association of Nigeria. As a commodity president, you are automatically a vice president in AFAN. So I moved to AFAN, I related with AFAN, and I was elected the president. Today, because of that experience, I allow all the commodities to do their own thing, because this is the only way we can harness the potential. If the president of poultry, who knows everything about poultry, is not allowed to play a very important role, how would you build up the industry? Same as rice. If rice was under the cleavages of control, for instance, would we have the rice that we have here? Because the rice farmers are only doing rice. If you allow the cassava people to do that, you would have the same, the young people, everybody. We will all come together. We understand that there must be synergies between us, and therefore we harness all those and we make Nigeria great. This is the attitude that we should take. Then government on its own should create the enabling environment for people to be able to produce optimally. And this is where Prof and his policies will come in. You create such policies that will help you to optimize what you produce. If, for instance, the technology related to mechanization is to be done properly, you need to bring in science and tech so that you not only produce the spare parts of tractors and other things like combined harvesters and all that you use on the field, you should be able to also design and build your own so that you will have the technology within instead of waiting to import. Now, because of COVID-19, Prof forgot to mention that even the tractors that we are going to bring to Brazil for some time, there was difficulty even in importation. You may not be able to import anything from another country seamlessly. And when you produce parts that are CKD, you need to transport them from the wharf to the places of need or the places where they will be put together before you now distribute them to the local government areas where the action is, where the farmers are. This takes time. I am sorry to say that the mechanization program, in terms of what you are talking with Brazil, may not be available for this farming season. You may have to do it in the 2021 season. But luckily, we had explanations from the Minister of Information together with the Minister of Agriculture that this is a 10-year program. It's going to take time, and with the continued upholding of the policy, with continuity of policy, you will be able to do this. If you jettison this plan after 2023, of course, you go back to ground zero. But if you continue this through to even 2030, then you will have a robust policy, and this will be there. The wrong word is to say exacerbate. A bad thing would exacerbate, but a good thing can also exacerbate. If you
Architect
do
Kabir
this
Ibrahim,
continuously,
let's just pause you for a while. Thank you. Let's just pause you for a while. We have another guest joining us here in the studio. I think Kingsley introduced him earlier on. Kingsley, you want to take him up, Professor Akim Oyerinde?
Professor Akim Oyerinde, head of Department of Crop Protection, Faculty of Agriculture at the University of Abuja. Professor Oyerinde, pleasure to have you with us on the program.
Thank you, sir.
All right. Now, amongst the points that have been articulated by our guests this morning is policy consistency of the Buhari administration in 5 years and the gains that we are seeing in the agricultural subsector of the economy. Those gains are attributable to the policy consistency. Plus, of course, the other aspects that the guests have touched on. From your own perspective, what else has worked and what else is working?
I think the major thing is the president is a lover of agriculture. And he has chosen agriculture as his main priority. Because any population that is hungry, there will be hunger and there will be instability. So in the past 5 years, agriculture got so much attention from the president. And when SA was talking about the ATA, that's transformation, agricultural transformation, to the green alternative, to the green initiative, you find out that we are speaking in the same direction. That has really helped this government, and it has built the capacity and the confidence on the farmer, especially, we have a case of running our agric with largely subsistence farmer. So they are having confidence in the government now, and they know that if they produce, they have people that will pick it up. The major problem we've been having is when you produce and there's a glut. You find out that the farmer will now be selling at a loss. But now they know. You see that even people that are not farmer, even civil servants are farming now, because they are sure that when you produce, you'll be able to get products as whether a primary product or intermediate product that you have a premium for. And with that, you have more money. Like when Architect Kabir was speaking about we have reached our capacity in rice production, I differ with that. This is a population of about 200 million people, and the level, when did rice even become our main staple? When? In Nigeria before, the kind of food that we have comparative advantage for, when we are growing up, rice is not part of it. Rice just came in as a visitor, and everybody is now trying to embrace the visitor. We have so many food that are indigenous to us. So when we are talking about, as regards the government now, the government in the past 5 years have been able to improve the rice value chain. So this time around now, the government should be thinking of other agricultural produce that are localized, that are indigenized, that can be escalated, that can be improved the way we have improved rice. If we're able to do that, and we should know that agric is not only crop production. You talk about the animal face of it. You talk about fishery face of it. If Nigeria, if we're able to feed this population, we'll feed Africa. We have nearly close to half of the population of Africa. So the major thing is that, and all Africa look on us. They focus on Nigeria. The more Nigeria develop, the better for Africa. So AFDB is there, and a host of capacity, like there's a work we are doing for presently for FAO in the AAD countries, AAD states. That's the action against the certification state up north. The present one that we are going into now is vegetable production. Because you find out we have indigenous vegetable that our people have been using. Because time is fast spent, I will not mention most of their name, but we have indigenous vegetable, we have foreign vegetable, and part of the food chain, when you want to have a good diet, you must have high component of vegetable that will give you mineral and vitamin. So since the SA is here, I want him to know that the focus should go to other agricultural produce. Rice, we should still stabilize what we are doing. We can still escalate it, we can still improve it, but we should not jettison the other valuable products. Like if you talk about sorghum, sorghum has so much industrial use, apart from being a food. So if we have developed sorghum up to rice level, the rate of export and the rate at which that product will add to our GDP, because we are thinking of taking agri back to when we have GDP of over close to 50% from agriculture. That's what the new minister should be focusing at. The other minister, they have, when you talk of additional, when you talk of how do we can speak volume about them, but the minister that we have now should be able to focus on having a groundbreaking event where people can, when they are attributing rights to someone, you should know what they will attribute to us, you. Because whether we like it or not, you'll be a minister for a while. When you leave that post, let people have an initiative. But I would like to talk little about where we have major problem.
Can we pause you on that for a while? Yes, we'll pause you to later. We'll look at the challenges, the gaps. You understand, and then of course we'll get your response. Kingsley, you have a question for him. Otherwise, I'd like to.
No, you can proceed. I mean, I put the last question to him. But I just Professor Ayorinde was going to get into the realm of challenges, but I think we'll come to challenges. I wanted Professor Sagagi to respond to some of the points articulated by both Ayorinde and architect Kabir Ibrahim, who joined our vice cab. A number of claims that particularly architect Kabir Ibrahim made.
Yeah. Thank you very much for this. And I think one of the things we have to really be modest about this, Nigerian agriculture has not reached a level where we can say that we are fully self-sufficient. We are still moving forward, and we're still getting to a point where this country can be able to beat its chest and say that Nigeria can depend on its farmers to produce most of what it needs. So regardless of what you produce, sometimes you have to import others, just like you have to export also some of your products because of the way the world is actually structured, globalization and what have you. That is by way of that. And then the second thing, there is a point that Prof has mentioned, which is very interesting. You mentioned sorghum. Last week, the Honorable Minister went to Kano with us, and he said he's also going to do some serious farming in his own farm. So when we went to his farm in the process, then we started talking about sorghum. And then some of the experts there, they now said that a new variety of sorghum has already been developed. And when they tried it, they noticed that it performed much better in Enugu than even in the core northern traditional sorghum producing states. So it's very interesting, and right there the Honorable Minister said we must have a technical committee in order to see how to develop sorghum value chain, especially as you mentioned that now sorghum is an industrial commodity. Nigeria can depend and can make a lot of products. I don't want to say money, but we can be able to do a lot in sorghum in terms of our industrial production. Now we have a number of our flour mills that are trying to use sorghum into the production of flour and many other things. So I think that one is already coming. But another point you mentioned, which is very good. For example, every government wants to show that this is my baby, this is what I have done. But in focusing on that, sometimes you pay less attention to the other babies. Right now, we have started some interesting initiatives, some programs that we feel that they have not reached a level where you can say that you have stabilized and you're going to start putting new things there. We are putting new things. That's why I said we looked at some of the weaknesses and some of the shortcomings of agricultural transformation agenda and agricultural promotion policy. And that's why we are coming up with this, so that they can augment, not to replace. Because if you begin to say, okay, this is his baby, this is my baby, the tendency is now that success of Buhari's administration on policy consistency, you will jettison it. So the Honorable Minister does not have that mindset of, let me ignore what others done so that I can have my own. And I think what is another thing, because you asked Architect Kabir a fundamental question which borders on comparative advantages. Everywhere you go in this country, they have some products. Just yesterday, we were talking to people from South. And now, what the ministry is going to focus on in the South is palm oil, cocoa, and cassava value chains. Okay. And for Southwest, now we are focusing a lot of attention on poultry, fisheries, and rice production and livestock. which is very, very interesting. There are a number of states in the southwestern Nigeria that are even doing better than northern states in terms of dairy and even organization of livestock. So all these areas, we are focusing on them so that we can be able to develop those value chains where those localities or those states have comparative advantage. It's part of what we are looking at right now.
I just want to be clear, I know that you're going to come in here. Well, just on the last point that you have made, the crops you're focusing on, say, in the south, you didn't include rice. Because swamp rice, swamp rice, and if you came to the old Midwest, which is Edo and Delta, you also have rice. In fact, when we were growing up, Ekpoma rice. I mean, the only problem you had then was the stones. Now you have destoning machines, just as you used to have a Bakaleke rice. You know, if you wanted to punish me then as a child, you asked me to start destoning the rice. You know, so I think that this is part of what you should also bear in mind. Rivers and Bayelsa.
I don't want to interrupt you on that. Just the last place that the Honorable Minister visited in Nigeria before COVID-19 was Cross River.
Fantastic.
And what took us there? Rice. Because I can tell you that, I don't know whether I'm allowed to do that, one of the states that has impressed the Honorable Minister is Cross River in terms of development of rice value chain. In fact, right now, immediately we get allowance to start moving around. We are going to take some of our directors and some of the technical people and take them to Cross River in order to learn some of the things that they're doing so that we can be able to spread it all over the place.
There's another place in Bayelsa. I think it's Primambri also. Very fertile for rice, you understand? But we'll just take a break. Kinsley, did you get punished?
I said if you wanted to punish me.
Did you get
of course. I mean, if you want, that's the discipline you get when you're growing up now. But the saying is that spare the rod, don't spoil the child. Otherwise, I would have been a spoiled boy by now, a spoiled man.
So this is Good Morning Nigeria. If you just joined us, you're right on time. But we just take a short break. When we come back, of course, we have our guest, Honorable Ahmed Sajo, who will be taking our next question when we come back. Stay with us.
Nigerians, coronavirus is dangerous. It can kill. When you see this sign, high fever, cough, shortness of breath, drowsiness, pneumonia, don't panic, don't hide, don't embark in self-medication. Promptly visit the nearest medical facility. Report all cases to the nearest hospital. Prevention is key. Avoid contact with infected persons. Avoid crowded areas as much as possible. Wash your hands regularly. Use hand sanitizers. Your life is precious. Stay alive. Live long, live right. This message is sponsored by the Federal Ministry of Information and Culture and the Nigerian Film Corporation. Nigerian Film Corporation, powering possibility.
Disinfect and protect your home with JIC. JIC kills 99.9% of illness-causing germs. Disinfect floors, kitchen and bathroom surfaces, and wash white clothes, towels, and dishcloths with JIC bleach. Just JIC it. Disinfect and protect your home with JIC. JIC kills 99.9% of illness-causing germs. Disinfect floors, kitchen and bathroom surfaces, and wash white clothes, towels, and dishcloths with JIC bleach. Just JIC it.
As a strong immune system increases the chances of victims surviving COVID-19. A corruption-free society creates opportunities for citizens to thrive and prosper. Build your immunity. Stop corruption now. Report all acts of corruption to ICPC on this toll-free number 0800 22 55 4272. This message is brought to you by ICPC and NTA.
The number of the COVID-19 cases in Nigeria is increasing daily, with many more tests ongoing. The battle of testing, isolating, treating, and attending to the affected persons rests heavily on the shoulders of our health workers, constantly putting their lives on the line and at risk to contain this virus, save and protect the lives of millions of Nigerians. To these health workers, we at the Nigerian Television Authority, NTA, on behalf of millions of Nigerians, say a big thank you for all that you have done and are doing. To the security agencies enforcing the lockdown and every other frontliner, we say thank you for putting your lives on the line to save ours. There is no amount of words that can quantify our gratitude. Thank you. This message is brought to you by the Nigerian Television Authority, NTA, Africa's largest television network.
Right, thank you for staying tuned to the program, and welcome back. If you've just, if you have been with us, our guests are still here in the studio. So, I said earlier, my question will go to you, Honorable Sajo. From a layman's perspective, it would appear that, as we said earlier on, rice, you know, is this administration's favorite baby, given the number of interventions. But the Anchor Borrowers Program, which is one of the high flyers of this administration, made provision for about, I think about 200 billion naira, which the CBN is implementing for crops production in more than 10 crops. Yes, in terms of amount disbursed, in terms of the number of farmers who have, you know, benefited from this, can you give us an idea? Can you measure the output productivity in those crop production outside of rice?
Well, let me start by putting it in perspective. Rice became a key factor because the import bill on rice was getting too heavy. The capital flight, if you may, was getting too heavy. And then the scandals around rice had graduated from, you know, rice that was expired to even plastic rice. So we were beginning to consume, or at least a kind of rice was being imported into the country that was beginning to become very harmful to the Nigerian population. So something needed to be done because, you know, there is a connect. You cannot talk about food without talking about health, without talking about education and everything. So when you eat unhealthy food or expired food or even plastic rice, the tendency is you are going to offload the crisis onto the health sector, and it goes that way and that way. And so government needed to intervene, not just for rice's sake, but even for the health of the population. And so we took those steps. But that is about saying that we had already gone a step ahead in crops like tapioca, you know, cassava, to the point that we were, you know, toying with producing cassava bread. So we had gone some steps somewhere, and then we realized that as we were moving, you know, we were having some baggages in some other areas, and so we picked up those other areas also and moved along with them. There was no crisis with our yam production. We were exporting yam already, so you cannot go back and say you are focusing on. It was all the strategic kind of thing that we focus on rice. But let me tell you that, you know, I want to admire the presentation of the professor for one thing, that the level of humility, you know, from him, and I understand, because anybody coming from an academic background understands that you do not come and sit down in front of a public like we are and begin to talk politics. He was talking very, very professionally that there are gaps. And it's hard for people in government to accept that there are gaps, but he has accepted that there are gaps. And what are those gaps? And they are very, very important. And I believe the professor will go back, you know, safely believing that those gaps are the real, are some of the real gaps that we need to fill. One of them is synergy. You know, agriculture is not just about rain-fed production. There is irrigated you know, crop production, and then the irrigation process itself carries with it other value-added advantages. One is that it provides water and pasture for animals around the, you know, areas that are, you know, prepared for irrigation. Secondly, it provides access to fishing and aquaculture activities. So if you look at it this way, there is a need, a very begging need for the Ministry of Agriculture to synergize with water resources and others to make sure that we move, we all go at the same pace. Then he also mentioned, and this is very important, and I want to take him on this very squarely, that the gap between our research institute and our production process is still too wide. Let's be honest. You know, if you go to Firo, for example, every year they produce palm seedlings. Who is the off-taker for that farm seedlings? Just go and find out. Sometimes they produce large number of farm seedlings and they let them go waste, and then they produce again next year. And I tell you, if you go to VOM, every year government budgets like 1 billion naira for vaccine production in VOM. But for a very long time now, VOM vaccines are not in the market in the quantities that are required. I want the professor to also go and look at it. How much do you spend annually on vaccine production, and how much do you gain from those vaccines? Because if agricultural activities are not given economic value, they will be stunted where they are. Because the end result is that there must be some economic value attached to it. You're talking about sorghum. What role does sorghum play in our beverage production? If it does not translate from sorghum farm to the beverage production factory, it does not amount to. So every farmer needs an off-taker. It's the off-taker that will make the farming economically viable and economically advantageous for people that she was talking about in the bracket of young people going into it to earn a living, not just to subsist, not to, you know, if somebody does not have a heavy family, what he needs is very little in terms of food production. But if he can produce beyond what he needs, it means he will take some of it to the market. If he will take some of it to the market and earn money to do some of the things he wants to do with the money, I think that is where, you know, so the connection between agricultural production and business and the economy must be made very, very solid and robust, so that agriculture itself would have value beyond just the foods thing we're talking about. Of course, naturally, food is key, because a nation like an army, they say marches on its stomach. You do not make progress on an empty stomach. You do not get healthy without adequate nutrition. But beyond that, agriculture must be made a business thing. There must be synergy between agriculture and the irrigation facilities. There must be synergy between agriculture and research institute. There must be synergy between agriculture and the universities and educational institutions, so that we can harvest all the advantages and then move them together to develop our agriculture.
All right, Sajo, thank you very much. Gentlemen and Claire, I think we need to clarify this for the benefit of our viewers who are probably 30 years or younger, or even 35 years or younger. The question has come up that rice was never our staple food. How come it has become, so to speak, the king of foods in Nigeria? That is directly traceable, to the best of my recollection, to the scandal that we had in the Second Republic, when on account of import license racketeering, there was established a so-called PTF. You have a PTF on COVID-19 now. Under Abuja, you also had a PTF on petrol. Now, in the Second Republic, there was a PTF, that's a Presidential Task Force on rice. And its own business was to coordinate rice importation. And then you had the ports in Lagos clogged, you know, with all kinds of imports, because it was fairly easy through the Ministry of Commerce to get your import license, and as part of the capital flight mechanism that was going on at that time, it just went on. So suddenly everybody was talking about rice. So when the Second Republic fell, a number of warehouses, you know, were broken into, and you found bags and bags of tons of rice. And people said, look, how come it was so scarce in the market? Prices had gone up, and in the meantime, you had persons who were holding those particular commodities. Unfortunately, that's how rice gained in ascendancy and became, as it were, king. But happily, we are now, of course, getting to produce rice back in our domestic environment. Claire, we have a number of tweets that have also come in. Let's take those tweets.
Okay, let's begin with Ruben Nagberry. And Ruben tweets, all Nigerian youths need is jobs, paid skills that can empower their lives. Therefore, the most critical thing FG should do is to revamp the power and agricultural sectors. Every other thing will follow, and youths will be gainfully employed.
All right, this is Nuhu Mohammed. Nuhu Mohammed tweets, I'm so interested and impressed with the level of agricultural development in the country. Now, without agriculture today, we wouldn't know where we would be at this time of COVID-19. Government should extend efforts to schools for more benefits.
And after President Shehu Shagari administration Green Revolution, and taking into consideration the long time neglected of the sector, The agriculture policy of the Buhari administration is a step in the right direction, which have yielded results, especially during the corona lockdown.
Ababola Hubabs, the Anchor Borrowers Program, the Back to Farm project guaranteed by NISAL, the soon-to-be-launched MFIP announced by the Minister of Information and the Minister of Agri are programs that Nigerians will remember Buhari for. Positive effects of these initiatives, the positive effects are better imagined.
Okay, Nuhu again treats government should make it compulsory for each agricultural student given some land to final year students as practical projects. This is support food security and drastically reduce unemployment in the land. Kudos to PMB and supporters of this vital policy.
Chris Simeon, President Buhari has done well in the agricultural sector. His administration has given incentives to farmers to boost the subsector. The Anchor Borrowers Program is highly commendable.
And this is Lucas Musa, and it's a question. Good morning, our presenters. My question is, I want to start a fish and birds farming. How can I access the fund from the federal government? I'm sure this is directed to the minister rep here.
Abubakar Mohammed, so far so good with regard to achievement in the agricultural sector under the President Buhari administration. Why we agree is because they have put it in place and the results are appreciable. Okay, and Mike tweets, the PMB blazed the trail in agricultural subsector of the economy is highly commendable, but the admin should not be complacent. That's those, of course, who are implementing. They should do more in this regard. Food security is the key, and agricultural products have both forward and backward linkage effects to development. This is coming from Abdul Rauf Adamu. Why I would like to use this opportunity to thank the President for his effort in agriculture. The problems farmers are facing is that they are not getting materials for farming, especially fertilizers, in time. And also the fertilizers are not adequate enough for them. Okay, Kingsley, I think I have another one. Let me take this one. BB Computers, that's the trades. Good morning. We hope the current Minister of Agriculture will make all the 13 research centers of agriculture to function well for better agricultural production. We have excellent farmers, but with low support. Okay, Reverend Mane Akman, he says Buhari's effort in agriculture is commendable, but nearly 70% of our harvest is lost to weak infrastructure, especially evacuation and storage facilities. The government should focus our attention on those areas. Okay, so the President has tried his best on the agri sector, like reviving our local rice for consumption. And then Festus Akimboyewa says, why President Buhari's administration continues to introduce new schemes to support farming in Nigeria, the bandits and herdsmen attacking farmers must be tackled effectively so that we can get the best outcome in terms of our food production. Mutana Farouk. Under the President Buhari administration, agricultural sector is becoming one of the most attractive business ventures everyone wants to key into. Now, this administration had saved Nigerians from a phenomenal food crisis that would have loomed the entire country during this pandemic as well. And just echoing what Honorable Sajo has just said. That's right. Leo Fadaka, Agric has received a boost over the past 5 years of President Buhari's administration. The bold step of closing the borders and the ban on importation of rice and other items is a boost to the agricultural sector. Okay, now Mohammed Taib tweets, actually PMB has tried and I give him kudos, but the price of the locally produced or said products produced by local agricultural farmers should be reduced in order to ease grassroots living. Now, Ibrahim Abdusalam Bello, the awareness created and opportunities for investment made available in the agricultural sector are commendable. Now, this has changed the narrative that agric is for peasant farmers only. Ibu Godwin, no administration lately has done what the Buhari administration has done in agriculture. Today we are not importing foodstuffs as we did before the advent of this administration. We should all support this government, he says. Chima Edomobi says, why does the government insist on importing mechanized farming equipment with scarce forex when we have millions of unemployed youths that can be put to work? This will be the debate between labor-intensive farming and capital-intensive farming.
Okay, I have the last one from Akeju Olagbaju, one of our regulars here, and it says, the COVID-19 has tested our resilience in agriculture, and it shows that agriculture is working. Nobody talks of food import or import waiver for sustenance in this period of lockdown or before. Now, in the past, the resources were wasted to amorphous organizations. Now, it has stopped. Thank you.
All right, so those are the tweets
there was a question.
Yeah, there was a question to Professor Sagagi. I'm sure if you remember the question, you take it. But there's something I want us to also advise our minds to. And you coming from the policy fountain, then you should be able to speak to this. Yes, agric is a business. We should push it as a business rather than as a development agenda in the first instance. But there are key elements to this business. And we don't appear to be hearing a great deal about these key elements I want to raise now. So you tell us what's going on. One, if it's a business, you also have to have an insurance scheme.
Yeah.
If it's a business, you also have to have good marketing. What happened to our marketing boards? And what are we likely to see now with respect to marketing? So two legs that are outstanding in my opinion, which I would like you to respond to: agricultural insurance and marketing boards. Prof.
Thank you very much, and let me start with the young fella.
Lucas Musa, I hope you're listening.
Lucas Musa, I think I want to start with you. Is very, very encouraging, and as a former dean of a business school, I can say this. I don't know how many of my students used to quit their blue and white collar jobs and go back into agriculture. And now if you go to some rural areas in my state, Jigawa State and Katsina State, you're going to see graduates, some former bankers, former people working in with MTN and some of this technology. Now, either they are augmenting their activities with agriculture or they have shifted almost 100% into agriculture. That's very commendable. It shows that young people are beginning to realize the potential in agriculture. The first thing is, whenever you decide to go into agriculture, don't just jump into it. Identify where you have some experience, or you have some mentoring, or you have some skills.
But he said, he said he wants to start a fish and birds farming, and I think his challenge is how to access the funds. Yes,
that's what I'm saying. Because sometimes I want to do poultry, I want to do bird farming, but I never receive any training, I never receive any mentoring. So if I give you 1 million naira, it's going to be wasted. So the first thing we encourage people to do is to learn it, get some hand holding. Money will naturally come. And why do I say that? We have a lot of government institutions, from National Director of Employment to some of the CBN interventions to some of the intervention by development partners, microfinance banks, commercial banks, and sometimes we can even get money from family and friends, or some borrowing also through local savings and stuff like that. There are a lot of sources of getting funds, but people will never give you money unless they are confident that if you collect that money, you are going to bring it back. So there's so many sources, and I wish I can get your contact. I will give you some tutorial on that, maybe after. That one is not going to be much of a problem. But know where you want to, know exactly the business, get some hand holding, and start small. Don't start big. Start small and grow it gradually. That's what I can say on this, and certainly I'm very, very interested in this young man, and I believe I can be able to get his contact so that I can give him more perspective on this, including some specifics on how to be able to get his funds. The second thing, which is very, very important, is that, and I want to link it up with this before, this administration in the next 3 years should be measured and judged using 5 things which are fundamental and is going to link most of the things we are talking about. Number 1, whatever you do in agriculture, if you don't have extension, forget it. And in this country, extension services is almost gone. So people just go there and do whatever they want. But now, the present administration is saying for this year, the mandate we get is to get not less than 75,000 extension workers. If you look at the ratio of farmer and extension worker, it's laughable in this country. So that is one. Number two, mechanization. That mechanization is extremely important. I mean, we are going to spend money to do it. But agriculture in the world has shifted from using hand and cutlass. Because if you don't do it, I think somebody has raised a question of costs. The price of food in Nigeria is relatively high. There's no doubt about it. And why? Because of cost of doing business and cost of production. To bring down cost of production, you need technology. Third, which is very, very important, knowledge that will come out of researches. We need seeds, because sometimes even your yield sometimes is determined by the kind of yield you use and those other inputs. We are also going to be measured by that. And then second to the last, the issue of livestock is very, very important. And I think this administration has already committed a lot of resources. And the ministry right now has 2 technical committees that are working on this. And finally, is connecting agriculture with industrial sector. And that's why today we are coming, and it's just like in the pipeline, we are almost finishing with the arrangement. We are going to create about 4 special agro-processing zones, targeting areas of comparative advantages in the different regions of Nigeria. And what we want to do is to make sure that the production, the input, the production, the marketing, including the insurance, the financing, all in one. And these 4 are just going to be models that people will look at and replicate in other places. So we hope that in the next 10 years, Nigeria will replicate what we are seeing in Taiwan, Korea, and many places in Asia that have developed from agricultural transformation. Thank you. Okay, I'm now going to speak not as government. I will tell you the age of marketing boards is gone, where you can be able to determine prices and do all the things that we did in the past. So let me come back now. Now we have many other systems where we have warehouse receipt systems. We have some system where you can be able to connect farmers with off-takers, where you can be able to take the products at the government and try to regulate the prices. If there is a glut, you take some, and if the prices are becoming a bit low or high, you know what to do. There's so many models you can use without necessarily bringing excessive regulation into agricultural sector. If you bring excessive regulation, and some of the things that we did in the past is likely to discourage production, and you don't want to discourage production at this particular level.
Well, Prof, thanks, but you know that the attempts at setting up a commodity exchange in Abuja, those attempts have been struggling.
Yeah.
All right. Okay, but these are matters for you to work on.
And just so sorry, you mentioned that's one of the areas you mentioned, because you mentioned commodity exchange. Right now, one of the things we are focusing on is getting commodity market right. Most of our commodity markets are highly unorganized. Highly unorganized. And my minister has been mentioning this since his first day in the office, and also getting some specialized and really integrated commodity exchanges. The moment you have this, the issue of commodity board will even be, nobody will even mention
yeah,
it.
we just say marketing.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Prof, thank you. Let me, earlier on, I paused Professor Akim Oyerinde when he was about to delve into the gaps.
Yeah.
Prof, just in less than 60 seconds, because we have just about 2 minutes to wind up, just give us an idea of what the gaps you foresee and what you think can be done quickly.
I think majorly the first thing that we have identified now is that the issue of data is paramount. The Farmers Association and a host of others does not have, there are so many people into farming that are not part of the association. So this government, this present minister should be thinking of how do we have efficient data about who are the actors in agricultural production. The second point is the issue of post-harvest losses. The 4 processing units is too small for us. The post-harvest losses is making some people not to even go into agriculture, because when you produce an insect and a microorganism are destroying it, you have lower value for what you are selling, and at times that will lead to food insecurity. Yeah. So that one is another issue. The other issue we have is that we have too much rules and laws that talks about cottage industries. In Thailand and a host of other countries that you have talked about, China, this room can be a processing hub. What you just need is, because the younger ones will not go into production because they have problem with NAFDAC number, SON number, and a host of other things. Okay. And these people will give you a guideline to have a huge, that will be too expensive.
Prof, thank you. Last word from Sajo.
Yeah, Sajo, Claire, I was just going to say, without prejudice to the question you want to ask him, Sajo, very briefly, can we make a strong presumption now that real farmers are now being reached by government intervention, whether financing or otherwise, versus political farmers that we used to have?
I agree with you absolutely. There are a lot of people who are into farming, but who are not truly into farming. But the Prof had already answered you. Said we need data. We need data, on who are the real farmers and who are the absentee farmers, who only put their names so as to collect government interventions. I think we need to do that. But he has made a very valid point. When we have extension agents on the field, we would have bridged that gap very greatly, because extension agents are people who are supposed to be on the field with the farmers, and they are supposed to make reports and give reports.
Right.
So I really commend the return of extension.
Thank you very much for your brilliant answer. When you are sending some messages on WhatsApp, they will do good like this. So good for you, Ahmed Sajo. Prof, we have a lot to talk about, but we are pressed for time. Yeah. Well, I hope you liaise with the Ministry of Employment and Labor, because they say they are providing 1,000 jobs for persons around the local government areas, so that some of them who are qualified to be extension workers could also be engaged. Empower. This is part of what they were doing before. All right, on that note, let's appreciate our guests.
Yes, all right. Professor Murtala S. Sagagi, Special Assistant and Senior Policy Advisor to Minister of Agriculture. It's been a very interesting conversation with you. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you very much.
And of course, Honorable Ahmed Sajo, Public Affairs Analyst and former Commissioner for Information and Strategy at Mawa State. Thank you. Always a pleasure to have you.
At least, thank you. You remember to say former.
All right, and our friend here, Professor Akim Oyerinde, who is Head of Department Crop Protection, Faculty of Agriculture at the University of Abuja. Prof, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you, ma'am.
King Architect Kabiru Ibrahim, he's the National President of Farmers Association of Nigeria, AFAN. He joined us from Katsina via Skype. Architect, many thanks to you.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
All right, thank you, gentlemen. And so that said, on Good Morning Nigeria for today, I'd like to thank you once again, and of course urging you to stay safe. We'll be back here on Monday for another interesting edition. I am Claire Chukwudinaga Abdullah. Bye-bye.
My only two names. I'm Kingsley Osatolo. Thanking you for being with us. We're back on Monday, same time, 7 o'clock in the morning. Stay safe and be well.